In Holly Springs, Mississippi, folks there aren't taking any racist mess, and now a viral video is showing exactly what went down when a drunk white man rolled up and brought the wrong injury to the wrong spot. The video now making the rounds on social media shows the white man getting beaten, stripped, butt naked, and robbed outside CJ's Lounge, a well-known black club in town. Here's how the local affiliate Fox 13 reported this story.
Video surfaces of a man police say might have been a victim of a hate crime. This happened after officers say an intoxicated man walked into a Marshall County club and used the N-word when referring to the patrons.
Investigators say that the bar is also a problem spot. They say that they respond to it several times every weekend.
Fox 13's Daniel Wilkerson is live outside CJ's Lounge on Memphis Street in Holly Springs. So, Daniel, how is this man police are calling a victim?
Daryl and Darcy, good evening to you. Good evening to you at home. They say he didn't go to the hospital until today. He believes he may have a broken jaw. Meanwhile, CJ's Lounge is now closed. Police say that they were operating without a beer or a business license.
Holly Springs police say cell phone footage they provided to Fox 13 News shows a Tippah County man who has been stripped naked. They say the people who attacked him are seen pouring on him what investigators believe to be beer. Officers say seconds before, they hit, kicked, and stumped nearly every part of his body.
The guy walked in and he was very aggressive.
Miles Stone says he was at CJ's Lounge on Memphis Street late Saturday night into Sunday morning.
Other guys in the area was listening, trying to remain calm. We asked them, they asked for him to leave quietly.
But police say the man continued to call the patrons the N-word. Holly Springs police provided another video of the man outside the bar, speaking erratically, throwing what investigators believe to be gang signs.
When they was scuffling and stuff outside, he was still trying to fight. He still was saying the N-word, N-word. Man, F-U-Ns, F-U-Ns.
Officers say the attackers used poles and sticks to beat him.
So you don't think this is a problem spot?
I do not think. I think it's a positive spot.
But Holly Springs police disagree. The police chief estimates they've been to some 30 calls over the last 3 months CJ's has been open. They say there have been fights, guns found inside, and a man shot in the foot. The chief tells me they're pushing the district attorney to declare it a nuisance.
I'm not standing for anything like that. However, we have to live with our choices, and he made a choice by going into there aggressively, and he has to live with the choice he's made.
Back out live here in Marshall County. Again, you're taking a look at that letter that was placed on the door. We should mention that police tell us right now they have a person of interest who they would like to speak with. Meanwhile, if you were here, you have information, you're asked to call the Holly Springs Police Department. Well, what does the victim remember about what happened? I'm working on that part of the story for Fox 13 News at 6.
I'm just saying, Matt.
Thanks for letting me go first, Roland. Thanks for letting me go first. Because I just went to CJ's Lounge while this was playing on Facebook, and they have some footage up of him coming in, acting a fool. It's a lot of black people there. I don't know if that part of the surveillance footage cut out. It may not be there. I don't know. But it sounds to me like it might be a lot of not guilties. You know, I'm not going to advocate for violence ever, but I will say that a lot of times, as even prosecutors will say, you know, some people got what's coming to them, you know, and this sounds like a situation where he went looking for a problem, created a problem. They're going to try to make it a hate crime because obviously a very salient racial issue. But, you know, jokes aside, I mean, you go into this club, you know, it's a primarily black club. You go in there, you're throwing around, you know, the most vitriolic racial epithet for black people, generally speaking. I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? And the CJ's Lounge is already mounting its defense, saying the police are not showing you what really happened. In that 20 seconds that I watched, he went in, started dancing. Nobody was bothering him. Didn't look like anybody was even surprised he was there. So I think it's really important to see what fully transpired, because what I anticipate is that we're going to learn that this person was either high or intoxicated, came into this place, started a problem. And, you know, I don't know if they're going to prosecute it, but I know that these kinds of situations are obviously pretty nuanced. And the way the news is reporting it is they want the clicks, right? They want people to be commenting on something that's in the national zeitgeist now because it's gone viral. But it looks like it may not be what is being reported on the media. And until we know more facts, we can't really know what happened. But I don't know, especially if he didn't go seek medical care the same day. He went a few days later. It could be because he was drunk or high or whatever. And when he came to, he wanted to try to cover his bases. But he really went in there and effed around and found out. That's what it looks like to me.
So just keep my microphone up. Matt talked about the CJ's Lounge on video. So this is what, go to my iPad. This is what they posted on Facebook. You see the guy, he in there, you know, he's sitting here. He hugged the brother at the door, and he's sitting here. I don't know if he think he's stepping or what he think he's doing. But I'm just saying, keep y'all, we're going to talk over the video, but I'm just saying, Raven, I mean, you know, Raven, you might be half Jewish, half black, but if you walked into a Jewish spot and you start throwing around the K word, they might not whoop your ass, but you ain't gonna be welcome. You walk into a black spot as a white man throwing around the N-word, hashtag team whip that ass is about to show up with the quickness.
Absolutely. I mean, just to reiterate what you're saying, Roland, what Matt said, if you don't want no issues, don't start no issues, right? I mean, similarly to Matt, I think I'm a fundamentally nonviolent person, and I do not think all violence is equal. And by that, I mean, you know, the violence of our ancestors who were enslaved, rebelling during the Nat Turner's rebellion against their enslavers is very different than the violence of the white enslavers denying their humanity in the first place. Not all violences exist on the same moral or immoral plane and spectrum. And so, you know, I'm not an anarchist. I'm a nonviolent person. I don't relish this, but I'm also thinking that people need to move the way they need to treat others the way they want to be treated. How about that?
Mustafa, I think about that scene from the movie Double Take when my man Orlando Jones said to Eddie Griffin, you campaigning for an ass whipping and you about to get elected.
Without a doubt. I mean, so we talked about this before. You know, white privilege makes people sometimes think that they got superpowers, right? That you could just go into spots and that you're going to be able to do things that you saw on TV.
Did Mustafa freeze on us? I think Mustafa froze on us. But his point is, pull that shit on TV, that's fiction. Mm-hmm. Do that in real life, your ass gonna get beat in real life. Just letting y'all know. So I'm just saying, my man, he walked up to the wrong spot. You see they sitting there talking to him. You see he's talking to some other brother right there. And you can see them hand movements. And you see, you see that. See, we can't even hear, but you see that neck movement and the brother look at him like, dog, really? You see the one brother on the left trying to put his arm like, say, dog, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, player. You don't want to do that. I'm just telling you, see the brother on the right, the left going, hey, man, get his ass out of here. And then you see how many people are filing out. They like, some shit is about to go down. Let me get my ass out of here because this white boy's about to get his ass whooped. Y'all can tell what's going on. They sitting here like, say, man, you might want to calm down, bro, because this ain't going to end too well for you. I mean, look, y'all see that they throwing the trash out. They know what's about to happen. What's about to go. Nah, he ain't putting his finger up. He ain't putting his finger up. So then he goes outside. Then he goes outside, and let's see here. That's the end of the video. He walked his ass back in, and right there is when, and then he pushed the brother, and that's when hashtag team whip that ass made an appearance. So, can't wait to see the full video, but I'm just saying, my advice to all white people, don't roll into black spots yelling the N-word. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get a welcoming committee. Oh, matter of fact, you will get a committee, but it won't be a welcoming committee.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Well, folks, today Donald Trump issued more pardons, this time for a couple of notable African Americans. One of them is rapper NBA YoungBoy. He also issued his own statement, and he dropped this here. I want to thank President Trump for granting me a pardon and giving me the opportunity to keep building as a man, as a father, and as an artist. This moment means a lot. It opens the door to a future I've worked hard for. I'm fully prepared to step into this. Big thanks to the pardon czar, Miss Alice Marie Johnson, for fighting for second chances for so many people, and to my lawyer, and to Brittany K. Barnett for being in my corner, and all your hard work to make this possible. And thank you to everyone who believed in me. I'm grateful, I'm focused, I'm ready. Ken Trail. Now, again, this is related to his previous convictions as a result. And he also, of course, is in the middle of going on tour. He faced a variety of legal issues, including gun possession charges. That was one of the things that the Baton Rouge rapper was facing. Now, let's now talk about Larry Hoover. Now, Larry Hoover, well-known Chicago gangster, led the Gangster Disciples, also a drug kingpin. This is the Chicago Sun-Times. It's on their front page. President Trump commutes drug kingpin Larry Hoover's federal prison sentence. Hoover and David Barksdale created the Gangster Disciples in the late 1960s, ruling as King Larry and King David until Barksdale was killed in 1974. Now, the White House didn't explain why he was granted the commutation. He said, but the story says, but Hoover attorney Justin Moore said Trump commuted Hoover's sentence to time served. He still faces essentially life in prison on a state murder conviction. And then Justin Moore says, we did what so many said was impossible. We got Larry Hoover out of federal prison. Now, as the story notes, Hoover still has a state court murder sentence to serve, and Illinois prison officials have previously said he'd likely serve it in the federal system. And then it says right here, the news comes 8 months after U.S. District Judge John Blakey heard a mercy bid from Hoover. The judge challenged Hoover's attorneys during that hearing, asking how many murders is he responsible for. Hoover's lawyers ultimately responded by asking the judge to disqualify himself from the case. Blakely hasn't ruled in the months since. So the story says Hoover was convicted of murder after a trial in December 1973, and a judge sentenced him to 150 to 200 years in state prison. It said that didn't stop Hoover from running the gang, though. Hoover was charged in federal court with 40 crimes, including engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise. He was found guilty on May 9th, 1997. The late U.S. District Judge Harry Lineweber handed down Hoover's life sentence in 1998, telling him he had misused a gift from God. And again, so what you have here is Trump doing this. Now, what many people suspect is that here you have Trump trying to appeal to black male voters, with these pardons. We saw him do this before with other rappers as well. And then now remember, you had some rappers who were on a campaign trail for him, and one of them was later indicted for murder after the fact. And remember that crazy, deranged moment when Kanye was in the Oval Office, and then he was pleading for Trump to pardon Larry Hoover. Y'all remember this here?
9 million surrounding suburbs where we can create some factories. Now, I think it would be cool for them to be Trump factories because he's a master of industry. He's a builder. And I think it would be cool to have Yeezy ideation centers, which would be a mix of education that empowers people and gives them modern information. Like sometimes people say, this kid has ADD, this kid has ADD. You don't have ADD, school is boring. It was boring, it's not as exciting as this. We have to make it more exciting, we have to mix curriculums. You play basketball while you're doing math. You learn about music while you meditate in the morning. We have to instate mental health and art programs back into the city. So those are, and also Larry Hoover is an example of a man that was turning his life around. And as soon as he tried to turn his life around, they hit him with 6 life sentences. So I believe you say don't tear down the statues. Larry Hoover is a living statue. He's a beacon for us that needs to see his family, that needs to go out and represent. When you have a block leader on every single block, they can own the block as their own. That's something I learned from Jim Brown, from A Mayor I Can. We need to put curriculums from people who really came from the streets, not people who are just trying to set us up to go into a work system or prison system that applies to what people are really going through, which Jim Brown has created.
What about gun violence with all the debate about the Second Amendment going on?
The problem is illegal guns. Illegal guns is the problem, not legal guns. We have 7
So that was Kanye in all of his ranting. Now, Chris Toller, we've seen Chris Toller on our show many times, and with the Black Voter Project, and he posted a series of tweets. And I think he's also on the money. So this was a tweet right here. The neighborhood publicist said he's going after a certain demo hard, and I fear it may work really well. Chris goes, this is my worry too, and not so much that he will win over a ton of new voters from this, but it will make it more difficult to convince certain people it's worth their time and energy to go out and vote against him or his party in the future. Now, that was one of the tweets that Chris had posted. And then this is what he also said. He said, this is exactly how the far right plays right into the misinfo machine, something that was very effective creating apathy among black men in 2024. Unless JB, that's the governor of Illinois, commutes his state sentence, Hoover isn't set free, but the media narrative is all about Trump's move to free a black man. Here's the reality here, and I'll start with you, Candace. Let's just understand politics. And there were people who were calling for Obama to commute Larry Hoover's federal sentence. There were people who were calling for Biden to do it as well. And the reality is, if either one of them had commuted the federal sentence of Larry Hoover, Fox News, Conservative Talk Radio, Steve Bannon, all the blogs, Obama, Biden let out thug, drug kingpin, murdering Larry Hoover. Those would be the headlines.
They would. But as you mentioned, what he did was really inconsequential. Why? Because he still has state charges, and that's what he's going to be serving. What he knows how to do is marketing. And, I was sitting in this spillover room in court the other day. So that's where the public is. You don't go into the main room, but you can see the Sean Combs case. So there were about 40 people who were there from the public. A lot of them, by the way, were tourists. They made this as a stop for them. After they saw the Statue of Liberty, they would come there to the Sean Combs trial. But the people who I spoke to, a lot of black men who are probably the demographic that he's speaking to, they didn't even believe the Cassie tape. They just believed, let Sean Combs go. Let all the rappers go. Let all the black men go. I mean, that was their mentality. So for him to make a move like this, it translates into a lot, but it also translates into nothing because he's still behind bars. Now, the fact that he was pardoned as opposed to commuted, that's a big deal. When you're pardoned, everything's a clean slate. When you're commuted, your sentence is decreased. Larry was pardoned. That speaks volumes.
Well, again, the story. So the problem, the White House hasn't talked about it. So, they say that he commuted his life sentence. That's what the Chicago Sun-Times story. But the White House hasn't talked about anything, so they haven't explained. And they did it before, where they don't explain commutation or pardon.
Oh, okay, all right. So
according to Justin Moore, his attorney said Trump commuted Hoover's sentence to time served. He still faces essentially life in prison on a state murder conviction. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and all of that ends up with the same result. He's still behind bars, and that makes everybody happy. It's the most exquisite plan that he gets credit to release somebody or commute their sentence, but Larry's going nowhere. It's just marketing, and I think that he is going to get a lot. Listen, this is the man he's going to be in some more rap videos. Well, I wouldn't put it past Trump to be in some rap videos. That's just the 8th grader in him who wants to be popular, and he was popular with rap artists back in the day, and popular with some of them now. But he's making sure that, again, I just see an 8th grade guy when I think about how he functions and wants to interact with people. And he's trying to work on being that popular guy, and he gained some points here.
Is this also, Rebecca, about appealing to the people who don't pay attention to the news and, oh my God, Trump pardoned Larry Hoover, and we know his name has been in numerous records. Rick Ross has shouted him out, and so many others. Your thoughts on this?
Rick meets Larry Hoover, one nation under God getting money. Yeah, look, I think for a lot of people, Larry Hoover is more of a pop icon. I think of some of the people who were connected in Chicago with who he is, who he was, who he has been. I think some of those people aren't as active on social media right now. But to your point, this is a pop icon. His name is his folklore, stories about him is a narration that's in a lot of hip hop. What I find fascinating about this latest set of commutations / pardons, but we really don't know what it is. The White House hasn't really told us which one it is the fact that NBA YoungBoy got more out of Trump than Tim Scott. If I was Tim Scott, I would feel really bad. I did all that shucking and jiving over the last few years, and I got nothing. But NBA YoungBoy got something from Trump. The other point I want to make is Black men aren't dumb. And I think Black men are tired of performative politics, whether or not it's Democrats pandering to Black men or it's Republicans pandering to Black men. I think to the greater point, and this is something that Candace mentioned earlier about the 90 million voters who just don't show up. I think that 90 million is going to be more impressed by this than folks who are expected to turn out to vote in 2026 and 2028. But what I find interesting in the pivot towards Black men is with that crypto party that happened last week, one of the people that was there was Lamar Odom. Now, I mean, I'm not exactly going to count Lamar Odom's pockets. I don't think he has $1 million or $5 million to invest in crypto. But, I've heard some reports that he was paid to be there. He got an appearance fee because there still is that perception of Donald Trump wants Black men to see Black men around him. That's the part that I find a little bit more interesting than Larry Hoover.
Derek?
I definitely agree with Rebecca and Candace. The 2 points I would add is this. We're at a point of no return. There was a time how we view in our society from a democratic standpoint about how the pardoning and the commuting should be done. It was a process, a very rigorous process. But now, since day one, when he let go 1,500 individuals, it was his way of thumbing the nose at a justice system that was coming after him fast and furious. I mean, this man was threatening to see himself dying in prison. He thought he was going to end up like Bernie Madoff, right? Dying in prison. And so he threw everything but the kitchen sink to run and to become president. And so now that he is in that seat, Roland, we're at a point of no return. He's saying, you know what? I'm so transactional. The hell with the rule of law. The hell with justice. I don't care what the perception may be. And so the reason why I think we're at a point of no return, because the future president's going to have to deal with this. You're going to have to deal with a public to say, hey, the other guy had a disregard of due process. The other guy didn't have a problem with accountability. The other guy devalued punishment. The other guy dealt with cynicism. The other guy had to do. And so now what happens when the Oval Office become transactional for both parties?
Okay. So I want to unpack that. And I need people to listen to me very clearly. I need people to listen to me very clearly. Even when Obama was there, one of the critiques that I had is that I felt that President Obama played it too safe. And what I often argue is that the presidency holds tremendous power. And what we've had are individuals who know about the power, but have been unwilling to maximize the power. And there have been instances where I believe that it was too safe. Take these pardons. Derek is right. This whole idea of a process. I can tell you, up until I visited the White House Friday before the inauguration, and there were battles going on inside of the White House regarding pardons. Pardons for former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., pardons for former Congressman Jefferson out of New Orleans, pardon for Marilyn Mosby. I was told that Biden drew a red line for what he deemed public official corruption. That was his red line. That's why he issued those pardons. I disagree with him, especially on Marilyn Mosby. That pardon should have been granted. I thought it was BS that she was convicted for using her own money. But I believe the problem, and I said this earlier, and I wasn't joking when I said that Democrats play too nice. It's like what's artificial. 2010, I was fed up watching how Obama was responding to Republicans and even some Democrats. This is what I wrote for CNN.com. Anthony, go to my iPad. Time for Obama to go gangster on GOP. And this is what I said. Civil rights activist Fannie Hamer made famous the phrase, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." For me, I'm sick and tired of Democrats having power and being unwilling to use it. I've always respected Republicans when they had power because they were willing to use it and maybe apologize later. I then talked about Obama watching Republicans block many of his appointments, and now he says he made it clear to them that he will, quote, consider, unquote, making some of the U.S. Senate goes into recess. Quote, one senator, as you are all aware, had put a hold on every single nominee that we had put forward due to a dispute over a couple of earmarks in his state. In our meeting, I asked the congressional leadership to put a stop to these holes in which nominees for critical jobs are denied a vote for months. Surely we can set aside partisanship and do what's traditionally been done to confirm these nominations. If the Senate does not act, and I made this very clear, if the Senate does not act to confirm these nominees, I will consider making several recess appointments during the upcoming recess because we can't afford to allow politics to stand in the way of a well-functioning government. I write, this is where the president needs to show his toughness and just do it. Forget threats. The actions of Senator Richard Shelby and other Republican obstructionists will continue if President Obama allows them to run roughshod over him. When you're the top dog, you do what you have to do to govern. Allowing Republican senators to continue to deny your appointments is nonsense. If all of them choose to support a filibuster, then you take it to the American people and show the obstructionists for what they are. You get your grassroots movement fired up to stand up and do something. The political right used its base to go after Democrats who blocked appointments to the federal bench and other positions. Why not be just as aggressive? And if there are members of your own party who stand in the way, such as Senator Ben Nelson, then you also blast them and make them pay for acting so foolishly. This president got rolled by the Senate over health care. His team made some boneheaded mistakes, and now they are paying for them. Continuing to play footsie with opponents will only get him into more trouble. He should set a deadline to have his folks confirmed. If not, appoint them all during the recess and go on about your business. Obama's critics keep blasting him for Chicago-style politics. So fine, channel your inner Al Capone and go gangster against your foes. Let them know that if they aren't with you, then they are against you, and we'll pay the price. That beautiful big budget bill we're going to talk about in a second, there were some holdouts, some Republicans, hardcore. Trump looked them in the eye and said, get your ass in line and vote for it. They did. It passed. What I'm saying here, Candace, is that I disagree with how Democrats do pardons. We're going to wait till the end of the year. We're going to issue all of them around Christmas like it's a gift. No! The power is literally with the president. The president can issue a pardon or a commutation anytime, any day. Damn it, do it. And let me be real clear. Fuck Fox News. Fuck conservative media. They're going to criticize you anyway. So you do it. And if they say, why don't you do it? Because I'm the president. See, again, this to me is when you play a game with folk and you don't let it be known, I am the president, yo ass deal with it. And if y'all want to swing, let's swing. Recess appointments, hell yeah, do it. I'm not threatening you. The moment y'all hit that damn gavel in recess, appointment. Boom, boom, boom. Don't play games with me, I'm going to do it again. At some point, and here's the other thing, whether they want to own it or not, this is actually one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't vote for them last time. Because they are responding to strength. And let me be real clear. Donald Trump is a thug. Donald Trump is a misfit. Donald Trump is a shameful, despicable human being. But what he is doing is maximizing the office of the president to its full potential. I think, frankly, he's breaking the law as well, but the Supreme Court gave him a get out of free jail card. But this is where, if you're Democrats, damn y'all rules. Again, if a Democrat wins in 28, I'm not waiting for that once a year part and stuff. I'm going to drop it now, move the hell on. But you know what they do? Once a year, and then the media they pick it apart. Republicans criticize, then some Democrats. Look at all the Democrats. Look at all them whiny-ass Democrats, Candace, who bitched and moaned because Biden issued preemptive pardons for his family and others. And the fact of the matter is he was right. This asshole would have investigated every single one of them. They would have ran up multi-million-dollar legal bills. And that's and that's why Biden did it. And he should have actually done it.
Now, the other thing, when you talk about timing and doing it just at one part of the year, because, it's a gift of some sort, when it's really the right that a president has at all times during his presidency, is that you throw people off. You get these pardons in all throughout the year where a lot of people aren't paying attention because we are trained to look at pardons at a certain part of the year. So again, this is just breaking rules with power that you actually do have. You are right in that the Democrats have to play it a lot differently and exert their power in a different way, to a point, of course, where it's legal. But this is one of those things where you can push the envelope a little bit. And it's something that, listen, he's using effectively and using it as a campaign strategy, right? For someone who's trying to get votes if he, hopefully in his estimation, runs again. So it's all strategy, it's all marketing. But when it comes to these pardons, it is indeed power that he has that we are so much more tight-fisted with, and it doesn't serve us good.
And Rebecca, remember, President George W. Bush commuted the sentence of Scooter Libby, who unveiled the name of a CIA operative. But remember, people got to remember that Dick Cheney was mad as hell because Bush did not give a full pardon. And people were really upset by that. Libby still had to pay the $250,000 fine, still stay on probation for 2 years. And that's how he did it. Well, guess what? Trump is issuing these pardons, and these people who he letting off, there are fines that have been imposed. I think the number's approaching $100 million, Rebecca, that these people don't even have to pay back. So they were victims of part of these crimes. He's like, nah, y'all ain't got to pay the money back. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We good.
You know, this is, we really got to unpack this because, one, I don't support the criminal legal system that we have in this country. It's not bring justice. It does not rehabilitate people. And I don't think it's working. I think it's failing. But when we're talking about pardons, I would say having an arbitrary pardons is also a problem as well. There should be a clear standard of, hey, this is what you do in order to get a pardon. You shouldn't have to know Kim Kardashian. You should not have to know other high profile people in hopes that maybe your name will be whispered somewhere in the White House and maybe perhaps you'll get a pardon. So I don't like how pardons are issued under Democratic presidents. I typically don't like how they're used under Republican presidents either. But what Trump is showing, so for the next future presidents who actually want to do good in this country, the thing that Trump is showing is how you maximize the presidency. Like, it's power. It's not absolute power, but in this world, it's very close to it. There's a lot of transformative change, a lot of positive things that can happen through that White House. And so the next person who gets in that White House, if you actually believe in the power of this country, the power of the people in this country, then use it for good. Don't be feckless. Don't be so caught up into the histrionics of what the opposition party is going to say. Do your thing because the Supreme Court has already said that you can do so. So we actually need someone in the White House who has that power, who will wield that power, but will wield it in a just way.
And bottom line is, if they gonna criticize you anyway, well, damn it, just roll with it. I just listen. I understand need for a process, but here's a reality. In that, and again, I accept this for what it is. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying all of that. But the fact of the matter is this here, is that when it just says right here, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, that the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states. When called into the actual service of the United States, he may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices, and he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. That's all it says. That's all it says. It actually, and I totally understand what Derek says, what Rebecca says, what Candace says. Doesn't call for a process. It literally says the power rests in the hands of this one individual, This one individual can decide for whatever reason they want. In fact, this individual doesn't even have to give a reason. They don't have to issue a press release. And what I am saying is, for Democrats, you need to toughen your ass up. And you need to buck up and recognize that when you have the power, you fucking use it. Because you're not always going to have it. I say it to people all the time. Obama's only going to be there 8 years. Period. Not 9, not 10, not 12, 8. And when I was championing for him to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court, not that feckless ass Merrick Garland, he had 10 months left. And black organizations, black female organizations, were scared to publicly call for him to do it. And I said, what the hell are y'all doing? The hell with invites to the White House. He is gone in January, but that Supreme Court justice could be there for the next 30, 40, 50 years. But a lot of black folks, no, we don't want to pray. And I'm just telling y'all right now, I've told this story beforehand. They had a Black History Month reception in 2016, and it was the seasoned saints and the young folk. And here we were at the White House at the reception, waiting for folks. The reception started late because the meeting had ran over. And I never forget, I ran to Wade Henderson. Wade, did anybody in the meeting raise the point about appointing a black woman to the Supreme Court? No. I ran to Melanie Campbell. I ran to Rashard Robinson. And I was like, how in the hell were all of y'all in that meeting and nobody looked that man across the table and said, Mr. President, we stand here right now and we want you to appoint a black woman as Supreme Court justice to replace Antonin Scalia? Well, you know, some of us didn't want to say anything because Loretta Lynch, you know, we hear she's on the short list and she was sitting right next to him. I don't give a shit if she was sitting right next to him. Y'all had an opportunity sitting in front of the President of the United States, and here were all of the young bucks and the OGs, and not one black person had the audacity to bring it up. They were silent. And I just shook my head. I said, I cannot believe y'all did that. And the letter that they had written, the black female groups, they slid it across the table to Valerie Jarrett privately. I said, what the hell are y'all doing? You need noise. So what I am saying is, when you have the power, you use the power. And you use it for good. You don't let off somebody who gave $1 million at a dinner and Donald Trump like, sure, partner her son. But you use it for good. But see, when you try to play it safe, when you, what are going to be the optics? Ooh, what are they going to say? What's the right going to say? What the left is going to say? You spend too much time giving a damn about what the right and the left is going to say. Then they ask, why'd you do it? Because I'm the fucking president of the United States. That's why. Next.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Senator Bernie Sanders is doing his usual attacking the Democratic Party. He's still upset because he lost the 2016 nomination because many of the party's officials got behind Hillary Clinton and not him. So he went on the Andrew Schultz podcast and talked about a number of things. And then he claims that the party is not for the people. Okay. All right, listen to this.
I have to ask this. I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you. We have a question we want to ask about what happened to you in 2016 with this Bernie Bros movement, where your followers are seeing they have a racism problem, a misogyny problem. Do you think that's a super PAC thing behind that?
That was the Democratic establishment. That was the.
Wow. Okay.
That was just, they were sitting there. We had a lot of young people. We had people of color, and they create this kind of myth with the help of the corporate media and all that stuff.
It's kind of interesting to that note is during this election, the podcast space, which the Democrats largely avoided, they feel had some influence in the election, and they started to label us the podcast bros and said that we were sexist and we were racist and bigoted. It's almost like it's the exact same strategy to get you out of there.
Yeah, that's what the liberal elite China does. They run away. Look, again, I would hope that everybody who's watching the program is that we as a nation have got to end all forms of bigotry, right?
Yes.
That I start off as a basic assumption.
Unless it's to your close friends, right?
Yeah, whether it's racism or sexism, homophobia or xenophobia, whatever it is. And liberal Democrats talk about that all the time. And then you get to what we call identity politics.
Yeah.
That you're black, you're wonderful, you're tremendous, you're gay, you're the greatest human being on earth.
Yeah.
And rather than say, what do you stand for?
Exactly.
You're gay, that's fine, who cares?
Yeah.
But what do you stand for?
Yeah.
Is every gay person brilliant and wonderful and great? No, of course not. Everybody's a human being.
Yeah.
So the issue is what you stand for, which gets you back to what we discussed earlier, class politics, in the sense of which side are you on? Are you going to stand with working families? Are you going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage or not? Are you going to fight to guarantee health care to all people or not? Are you going to demand that the wealthiest people start paying their fair share of taxes or not? Those are the issues. And no one cares what color you are, what your gender is, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, allow me to unpack what you just heard. If there's been a blind spot of Senator Bernie Sanders for a very long time, it's on this issue of race. Were there African Americans supporting Senator Bernie Sanders? Yes. Ben Jealous, Cornel West, and others. But the reality is, Bernie Sanders had a black problem. He did. Bernie Sanders could not get the black vote. Bernie Sanders right now still complains about what happened in 2016 and 2020, and he's convinced that he was going to get the nomination. And then there are people who are far left progressives who believe that. I don't. Because the reality is here, America is not a far left progressive nation. It is not. We can sit here and play games all we want to, but the fact of the matter is, it's not. You're a Democrat, you're likely going to have to be a centrist or close to a centrist, because part of the problem with the Democratic Party is the tent is so big. And frankly, it's not as narrow as the Republican Party. Okay? The other thing is this here. Bernie Sanders really has a problem with what he keeps calling identity politics. Bernie Sanders sounds like a right-winger when he does. See, he keeps saying the whole deal, oh, you're black, oh, you're gay, you're great, you're amazing. Well, first of all, Bernie, there was a reason that was a song called Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. There's a reason Roberta Flack and Donna Hathaway had their song as well. There's a reason Aretha Franklin remade the song Respect after Otis Redding did it, and it actually became a women's anthem. Bernie Sanders doesn't want to deal with the reality that, yes, in this country, women, especially black women, have been grotesquely marginalized. And we know what happens to African Americans. Now I know some Bernie Sanders supporters right now say, well, Roland, wait a minute. He was riding hard with Reverend Jackson. He was on the campaign or whatever. Yes, that's absolutely true. But it's not like Vermont does not have issues with mass incarceration. It's not like Vermont doesn't have issues when it comes to race. See, I just want people to understand really what we're dealing with here. And I remember when this was a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I can't remember. Bernie had done an interview with GQ and was complaining, railing against these identity politics. And I remember sending a text message to the guy who ran his campaign, Jeff Weaver, who was with Our Revolution. I said, Jeff, I'm gonna tell you right now, Bernie Sanders keeps doing this, I'm gonna light his ass up. So Jeff's like, hey, can I set up a meeting between you and the senator? Yes, you can. So I went to Capitol Hill, and I met with him. And I told Senator Bernie Sanders to his face, I said, you keep railing against identity politics, and what you don't understand is you're speaking negatively about black people. See, Bernie's whole view is this thing is about class. Nah, bro. That is about class. You could be black and upper class, middle class, lower class, your ass still black. This is Bernie's problem. And see, Bernie Sanders doesn't want to admit that yes, Bernie bros were sexist. Some were sexist, some were racist. There's a reason why a number of former Bernie bros supporting Trump. Because what Senator Bernie Sanders represents, and I'm telling y'all, I know this, see, people need to understand why there's a symbiotic relationship. Because Senator Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, in many ways, are the same. Tear the system down. So the people that back them are like, yo, tear this shit down. I don't give a damn. Tear it down. It's very similar language. So they identify with one another. And so the Bernie people, they're mad at Congressman Jim Clyburn. First of all, Congressman Jim Clyburn endorsed then Vice President Biden. He couldn't cast every ballot. Congressman Jim Clyburn represents one congressional district in South Carolina. He don't control the whole state. Do people respect him? Yes. Do they value his perspective? Yes. But people made individual decisions. And see, this is what Bernie Sanders and all of these other white progressives don't understand. Black people are some of the smartest political minds you will find. So let me show y'all what happened in 2020. Black people, so remember, Iowa, well, I think Buttigieg won. Then they went to Nevada. Bernie won at the caucus there. Then they come to South Carolina. And if y'all want to see the racism among these white Democrats, especially Bernie's people, they shit it all over the black people. These are black, they're rural. We have no chance of winning the state. So we don't care what they think. Really? Here's what black people did in 2020. Black people went, who do I think can beat Trump? Black people said, we got Vice President Kamala Harris. We got Senator Cory Booker. We got Pete Buttigieg. We got Amy Klobuchar. We got Tulsi Gabbard. Late in, Bloomberg jumped in. Deval Patrick jumped in. Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders. I know I'm leaving off about 2 or 3 people. But that literally was a Democratic field. And black people went, who do we think can beat this white man, Trump? This white man right here. This old white man, we think he can beat Trump. And they picked Biden. Was Vice President Biden the most charismatic candidate? Nope. Was Vice President Biden the most energetic candidate? Nope. Black people are pragmatic voters. Black people, see, everybody forget, black people weren't sitting here riding for Obama. August of 2008, hell, he was down, August 2007, he was down 20 points to Hillary Clinton. His black numbers were real low. Because black people like, man, I don't know, this brother got a shot. Because black people said, I don't know, white folks gonna vote for him. See, we gotta wake up to a reality. 71% of the electorate in 2024 were white voters. If you put all the black voters and Hispanic voters and Asian voters and Native American voters all together, you get 29%. So Bernie Sanders is still bothered. Because he lost. So then Bernie Sanders talked about the elites, and you know, this is what the elites say, and this is what the elites think. Well, Bernie, can you please name the elites? See, this is why I don't let people get away with that language. It's the elites. Name them. Name them. People go, well, Bernie, how many bills have you actually passed? It's a fair question. So he is still bothered because he could not get the votes. And Breonna and all these people can run around, oh, he didn't have a fair shot. No. Bernie Sanders would have got dusted even more so. Because you know what they would have did to him? Which is what they did to Obama, they did to Biden. Socialist. How well did the Republicans calling Biden a socialist work in Florida? What the hell do you think they would have called Senator Bernie Sanders? So Senator Bernie Sanders keeps talking about class. Okay. Let's see here. Bernie Sanders and AOC tour. And they keep talking about, oh my God, how popular they are among Democrats. Okay. So it was the Fighting Oligarchy tour. Okay. So they went to, just keep it right here, keep it on me. So they went to Omaha, Nebraska as the first stop. Y'all know in Nebraska, it's a sea of red and there's a blue dot. That's Omaha. Then they went to Las Vegas. Then they went to Denver. Then they went to LA. Okay. They didn't go to West Virginia. They didn't go to North Carolina. They didn't go to Georgia. They didn't go to Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas. Arkansas. I can keep naming them. So if Senator Sanders wants to have a conversation about class, why don't you go where the class discrepancies really are? I'll be honest with y'all. Being a Democrat and doing a tour fighting oligarchy and going to Omaha, Denver, Las Vegas, and LA, that shit ain't fighting. First of all, help me understand something. See, y'all, since we really want to go there, you say it's about class, you keep talking about working class, working class, working class, working class. How many working class people do you know walk around going, so Mustafa, what are your thoughts on that oligarchy? They don't say that. They don't even use those phrases. So you're talking about how we're not for the people, we're not for the... No! Senator Sanders and AOC are actually talking to the elites. Him sitting down with those four dudes, all right. I have never received an invite from Senator Bernie. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and just, before I go to my panel, I'm about to mess y'all up. When Bernie Sanders ran for president, Bernie Sanders wasn't doing no black media. That his folks were trying to get him to do it. I called Marcus Farrell, called Teslin Figaro, called a sister who was his campaign man. Y'all, I'm trying to tell y'all, they were trying to get him to do that. We booked him on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Let me tell you what happened. I got the text message. Don't make me pull out receipts. Bernie was out west. He canceled. I lit that ass up. Ben Jealous called me. Yo, Ro, hold up. Before you go off on social, let me work on it. Ben Jealous hit. Dog, you cannot cancel the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Because he didn't think it was important. Now, he eventually came on. He's like, well, that's just too early for me to get up. You running for fucking president. Get your ass up. That video we just showed y'all is the Achilles heel of Bernie Sanders. Is that he acts like you can remove race and only focus on class, and that is absolutely stupid. And he keeps making the same mistake, and I'm just going to let you know, Senator, you were never going to get the nomination because you could not win enough core voters to get it. And the places that were not going to vote for you, you could not get black votes in any of those southern states, including North Carolina and Georgia. So can we please stop fooling ourselves with this ridiculous game of you going on podcasts with mostly white dudes whining about the elites when it's actually the elites that support you. Mustafa, you first.
You know what's interesting? I've sat down with him in meetings, done different interviews with him. And there is a problem that exists. And I don't know if it's a part of politics or what it is, but we love to extract race out of the conversation and try and replace it with class. And we have huge sets of examples, all kinds of studies that are out there that show where the real disparities lie. That's not to say that if you're poor or lower wealth and white, that you're not impacted, but we know there is a difference in that. And I don't know why he has not yet evolved into understanding that when you extract race, you are sending a message to the folks who are dealing with and carrying that burden that this country places upon them. I've sat in the before and heard how conversations with one set of folks went. And then I'm sitting outside in the chair, sort of digesting the meeting I just came out of, and then heard how conversations went with a different set of folks who looked different than the people who were in the room when I was in there. And there was more time given. Now, I understand I worked on Capitol Hill, and sometimes you may have limited time, but I would expect there to be equity in that from an individual who says that they are for the people. So, you know, it's just a real interesting thing. The other part of it is that if you're really about, you know, the folks who are being impacted, then you have to go and spend time with them, not spend time with them on the campaign trail, but you actually got to spend time with everyday folks on their back porch, in their kitchens, having conversations with them so that you've ground truth what's going on. So there's real authenticity in what you're sharing. I say that because when politicians come, you know, whether it's Mississippi or West Virginia or a whole bunch of other places, and if you're a millionaire, it's sometimes hard for people to actually believe that you understand what they're dealing with on a daily basis. When you're trying to keep the lights on, put food on the table, trying to figure out, you know, how you're going to pay for asthma medicine, or if you're going to actually have to go and pay the rent. So, you know, you've got these individuals whom I think have some real caring, but there's this huge disconnect between what they're sharing and what they're doing. There's a quote that says, "I can't believe what you say because I see what you do." Folks need to really take that to heart if they want to be authentic in helping folks who have been vulnerable or have been unseen and unheard.
Dang, Raven, Democrats haven't done enough for working class people. The last administration was the most pro-union administration since FDR. What the hell is he talking about?
You know, I'll start by saying this. I really like a lot of Bernie Sanders' politics and positionalities. I think he gets a lot right. But to affirm what you all have been saying, I think in this instance, he really missed the mark. And I kind of want to scaffold out why the mark was missed. First of all, when we're talking about a class analysis that does not also account for gender, for race, for sexuality, for disability is an incomplete class analysis. So even this idea of talking about class in a way that is devoid of identity. Also, socioeconomic status is an identitarian factor. It is one that is porous and that changes and moves, but it is still an identitarian factor. So to frame it as if it's completely separate from these other lived experiences is a faulty place to start. The two things I want to talk about in this situation, first is this idea that the liberal elites are levying these unfair claims of bigotry. And secondly, this idea that identity politics is devoid of utility or isn't working for us. To that first point, when we're talking about the liberal elites, whatever that means in Bernie Sanders' imagination, there's an important distinction to be made here. There is a difference between accountability and moral absolutism. One thing I think we do very, very well on the left is we hold people accountable. We do not worship our politicians. When politicians do right by us, we praise them. And when they do wrong by us, we hold their feet by the fire. And I do think that is a huge distinguishing factor between how we move on the left and how they move on the right. The right feels way more cultish to me. They fall in line, okay? And so I value that on the left, we have the ability to hold people accountable when it matters. Now, where that gets dangerous and where I sort of see where Bernie Sanders is coming from is when that veers into moral absolutism. This idea that my positionality is the absolute correct one, and anyone who doesn't fall exactly where I do in this spectrum of belief is somehow inherently wrong. That is dangerous. And I think that's where our coalition falls apart sometimes because we opt into these carceral logics of discarding one another when someone isn't perfect. And at the end of the day, perfection is white supremacy culture. Expecting perfection is white supremacy culture. And I think that is a very, very dangerous trap that we do fall into sometimes. But that accountability piece is still there, and we do get it right a lot. And so I think it's also intellectually lazy to imply that when we hold these manosphere podcasters on the internet like Andrew Schultz accountable and call them bigoted or call out moments of bigotry, that is not true or is always false or is somehow just this liberal elite tactic. The last thing I want to talk about is identity politics, because real talk, Bernie Sanders doesn't understand what identity politics is. And I'm going to break it down for you. I have a master's degree in African-American studies. I'm deeply learned and read in Black feminisms. And I say feminisms with an S intentionally. If you know, you know. Black feminists coined the term identity politics. Okay? The term identity politics was coined in the Combahee River Collective Statement, which is a statement that was made by a cohort of Black women in the late 1970s. In this statement, they break it down for us. And I have the quote for you because I like to bring my receipts. Very briefly, they say in the statement, quote, "This focusing upon our own oppression is embodied in the concept of identity politics. We believe that the most profound and potentially most radical politics come directly out of our own identity, as opposed to working to end somebody else's oppression." So what that means is, in this moment where the women's liberation movement is not contending seriously with race and the Black liberation movement is not contending seriously enough with gender, this cohort of Black women are like, you know what, we're gonna focus on getting us free. Because we fundamentally believe that if we can figure out how to get us free, we'll figure out how to get everyone else free, because our oppression is interlocking with everyone else. So to focus on oneself, to turn in on oneself, is a particular sort of political taking up, right, that is being offered through identity politics. That is not what Bernie Sanders is saying, which to me demonstrates he doesn't understand what identity politics is. His reading of identity politics is, well, I'm Black and they're Black, so they can do no wrong. So I'm team them. No, if that were the case, then I'd be rocking with Candace Owens and I'd be rocking with Clarence Thomas, and I'm not. For me, that's not the end all be all. And in that sense, I hear what he's saying, right? It's not necessarily about how one identifies. It's like, what are your politics? Do you want to get free the way I want to get free? If you do, you're my people. I don't care what your identity is beyond that, right? If you want to get free the way I want to get free, dope. But to water down identity politics to this weird identitarian solely based fidelity is it's just untrue. It's not rooted in truth. And frankly, erases the labor of Black feminists who created identity politics as a particular way of imagining freedom in the first place. And some of that I definitely hold him culpable for, but also I think a lot of that is just emblematic of how people relate to language. This is not the first time that as a community we've invented language to imagine our own freedom, and it has been taken up and distorted and turned into something that it was never intended to be and made to perform work that it was never intended to perform. And I think we see that really showing out in this conversation he's having with Andrew Schultz.
Sorry, Matt, you have to follow that.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to follow that, but I am going to steal that rhetoric of, I think she said, talking ourselves into carceral positions, which is just chef's kiss. I mean, what a beautiful way to say that, because I think that's emblematic of a lot of what we hear when we have these conversations about the silos and the far ends of the spectrum when we're having conversations about politics. So I think that's a great way to frame it. But all I'll add is this really in two parts. The first thing is, I think a nuanced analysis allows us to look at what Bernie's saying and see if there's any value there. I will say, I have a lawyer that I have lunch with often. He's a dear friend of mine. I went out with him and a group of people today, and he has told me more times than I can count that he feels the Democratic Party failed by focusing on too many discrete identity issues. That doesn't necessarily mean he's right. That doesn't mean he's got all of the bona fides for electoral politics that some of the people on this panel do. But I do think it's important that there's at least some sentiment out there that there's some contingent of people in the Democratic Party who think there's been too much focus on identity politics. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think Bernie is speaking to that to some extent. And I think in order to think critically and to analyze this truthfully, we have to consider if there's any value in that statement. Now, the full stop part of that is, the reality is, Raven's exactly right. I think on the left, we do hold people accountable when we think they've done wrong. But what we do not do is we don't parse out what they're saying and what they actually mean and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And the irony of all of this is the United States is definitely an oligarchy. We know that. But both Forbes and Yahoo Finance in the last 2 years have published numbers that say the number of households in the United States of America that have $1 million or more are between 8.8% and like 12%. So let's call the average 10%. That means if Bernie is worth more than $1 million, which my understanding is he's worth more than $3 million, he's in that rarefied air. So I tell you that to say populism is leverageable. You see it on both sides of the political aisle. You see it with Bernie and you see it with Mr. Trump. That's exactly what Mr. Trump has tried to do in his base in riling up poor people in southern states, primarily white people, telling them that the government is too involved in their lives and taking away things that they're just as reliant on as the people he decries that don't look like them, Black and brown people and people in urban population centers. I say all of that to say I think some of that is true with Bernie. I think for a long time, he has just been seen as this, perceived populist icon. But if you look at it, he's a part of the very oligarchy that he speaks against. So I think what we have to do on the left is be more critical sometimes at what we put up as our icons and whether those icons are living the truth that they espouse, number one. But number two, I think we have to consider, electorally, is there any value in what he's saying? Because I'm hearing that on the ground. I'm hearing that from dyed-in-the-wool Democrats where they think that. And of course, that's anecdotal. That's not every single person's opinion. But I don't think that that's a conversation we shouldn't have. I think that is a conversation worth having. However, I think Bernie is also an 83-year-old man, and old people tend to say what they say without filters. And that may not be the marching orders we need to have as the Democratic Party going forward for electoral success. But I have heard it with my own ears from a man I had lunch with today that he has the same sentiment. So I think there's a question about what value is there, if any, in the statement.
All right. So let me ask this. So when he stated that, did you say, name them? Name the issues. Did that happen?
I honestly don't remember what we talked about after that.
Because here's my whole point.
A few times. He didn't mention it today.
No. But here's my whole point. And I guarantee you, matter of fact, I'm just go down the panel. Raven, when that happens to you, do you say, name them?
Name them in terms of like naming.
When somebody says, I really think Democrats are focusing too much on identity issues. Do the people who say that, do they ever name it?
No. I mean, oftentimes I feel like that's just a stand-in for I don't want to take seriously the experiences of people on the margin.
Right. But I'm saying they never name it. Hold on 1 second. Mustafa, when you ever hear that phrase, do you ever hear them name it?
No, they don't.
Now, so let me unpack it. When I force people to name it, do you know what I hear the most? Trans. What I hear the most when I force people to answer that question, this is what I've heard. Black people, white people. They felt that the Democratic Party elevated trans issues to the same level as African Americans and women and others, and that became a dominant issue. What I've heard from people say out of their mouths that they felt that the Biden administration in so many policy was trans. How do I know that that's what happened? What do Republicans do? What was Donald Trump's most effective commercials? When he pulled the clip of Vice President Harris talking about surgeries for trans prisoners. That actually started under Trump. But here's the point that I'm making. We allow people to use that phrase and not force them to say, no, name it. You keep saying, oh, well, I think the Democratic Party went too far. Name them. See, I want them to say, Democratic Party went too far for Black Lives Matter. Say it. I want them to say, Democratic Party, went too hard for this breaking the glass ceiling stuff with Hillary and Kamala. Say it. See, none of those podcasts is talking to Bernie. None of them made them. See, these people get to throw the phrase out. I see this on mainstream media. I see it. They never force them to name it. My deal is name it and claim it. And I just think that that's what we have to do. We have to start forcing people to actually put their name on it. No. Name me the specific issues or groups where they went too far.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. Because, see, it's real easy to stay broad. That's supposed to be specific.
Yeah. Well, people don't want uncomfortable conversations, and that's the problem that we have. Because if we have people to name it, and you know me, I automatically ask folks, show me the proof.
Yeah, they can't name woke. They can't name, there's always something. My deal is I'm not letting them off the hook. And Senator Bernie Sanders, I've seen him do this way too many times. No, Bernie, I need you to name it. When Bernie Sanders says, Democratic Party hasn't done anything for the working class. Shit. Pull a whole damn thing. Oh, this. And then, okay, Bernie, tell me what more you want done. Tell me the bill that you sponsored to achieve that. I'm all about accountability. I'm not letting people off the hook. I'm just not letting them off the hook. I just can't. So that's what I think what we have to do. And between now and the midterms next year, we cannot let people, at least Slotkin, run her ass around Democratic Party with too far woke. No, hell no. I need black folks in Michigan to put our ass on the spot and say, no. What the hell do you mean when you say too woke? What do you mean by that? We cannot allow, I'm going to say this very clear. This is for Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Slotkin. This is for Senator Chris Murphy, James Carville, all of them. We cannot allow white Democrats to use the same language as Republicans when really what they're saying is, I think we are too black. I'm going to leave it at that.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
The Department of Justice, they announced they're investigating whether the city of Chicago discriminates against municipal job candidates based upon race. This is after Mayor Brandon Johnson, while speaking at a church on the south side of Chicago, highlighted the number of black officials in this administration. Well, in a letter posted on social media, Harmeet Dillon, a true MAGA idiot who's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, overseeing the Civil Rights Division, she wrote, based on information suggesting that you have made hiring decisions solely based on race. That's kind of stupid. When a reporter questioned Johnson about the investigation, he said this.
Well, I'm not surprised. Right? I mean, this administration has, obviously has demonstrated a great deal of animus and disdain towards what is sensible about our country, and that's the diversity of our country. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have one of the most, if not the most diverse administration in the history of Chicago. What's clear is that not only does the Trump administration not respect the rule of law or what's sensible about our society, you would be hard-pressed to find qualified individuals who are in his administration. As my administration reflects the country, reflects the city, his administration reflects the country club. And that is the biggest difference between what we're doing in Chicago and what is coming from the federal government. We're going to remain firm and steadfast in our commitment to ensure that the incredible diverse talent that we have within our administration that continues to lead us towards the safest, most affordable big city in America, we're not going to shy away or apologize for who we are.
So you got to understand the white wing being so upset. And this is just a clip of the conversation that the mayor had that they are all up in arms over. I mean, they are just totally upset because of what he said. But they ain't say nothing when all them white mayors were hiring white folk after white folk after white folk in a city with a whole lot of black people. Listen, look, just listen to this here.
Some detractors that will push back on me and say, you know, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet. I don't know too many cultures that have play cousins. That's how generous we are. We just make somebody a family member, right? That's just how we are. And so business and economic neighborhood development, the deputy mayor is a black woman. Department of Planning and Development, it's a black woman. Infrastructure, deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Infrastructure, deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Senior advisor is a black man. And I'm laying that out because when you ask, how do we ensure that our people get a chance to grow their business?
Truth be told, Randy, these white folks they just can't handle black people being in power.
They really can't, and they really can't handle us being united. What is really interesting, after being all these years in DEI, there were studies out that showed of all the groups, identity groups that exist. So you're talking about LGBTQIA, or a Black, or Latino, or Asian, or disabled. Black people hire within our identity group less often, less frequently than any other identity group. And it's because of the fear of what's happening right now. Whenever we hire within our group, whenever we, I'm a vice president and I bring on a Black director, it is seen almost as a threat to white people in power. It is seen as if, oh my gosh, is she starting a coup? So Black people have actually strayed away from doing it. They've held back from doing it because it creates fear in others. And so we have not typically looked out for each other as much as other groups, identity groups have. And this has been proven study after study. And you see what's happening now when he's pointing out that I am creating an administration that is diverse as Chicago is, that is representative of our great city. They're saying, oh, there must be something wrong, again, trying to call out reverse racism. And we know that's a lie. It is a catcall to create fear anytime we become united, anytime we try to create an equal system. It's very common what's happening right now, and it's unfortunate.
These folks, we got a phrase in Texas called, man, they chap my hide. And these white nationalists, white supremacists, Joe, all they do is, oh my God, so white people are just under siege. This is why I wrote my book, White Fear. But I predicted all of this here. And this is the Republican Party. They literally think that white people are just so downtrodden and they just have it rough.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing kind of what you see going on. We go back. We weren't too far. When I was in law school, we weren't too far off of Harold Washington's days in Chicago. And all of the doors that were opened up by that time. And you look at what's happened with other Black mayors over the year. I grew up with Tom Bradley, and then there were others, David Dinkins in 1989, et cetera. Then anytime you open the doors for other Black folks, and to Randy's point, Black folks have to be diverse and bridge build, first of all, to get elected. Black folks don't usually get elected just by being elected by other Black folks. Not even just from a number standpoint, but sometimes from a money standpoint as well. So we have to bridge build to make it anyway. And that's what we do in corporations every day. That's what we do in our jobs every day. That's what we do in schools every day, et cetera. But we are very open to other people and having coalitions, et cetera, because that's how we win. That's how we stay in the positions that we're in. And we also understand the power and the value of diversity. We don't turn around and become less diverse because we're a beneficiary of people that prioritize diversity. And so again, there's this entitlement that says, and it goes back to even when people are speaking against affirmative action, that is rooted in an entitlement that says these people shouldn't be here. These people don't belong here. And so again, we're at this place where in a diverse city, white folks think white folks and only white folks ought to be in charge. And how dare someone actually have the common sense and the good sense to understand that that's not the case. And so the Trump administration is reaching their hands into diverse cities, into politically democratic cities and things like that, mistaking what they had, winning the election by very little, for a mandate that says we should be able to change everything, even if the law hasn't followed yet, even if there's no legal precedent for this. And so I think that the pushback is very, very necessary, not only because it's wrong from a law standpoint, from a legal standpoint, but it's also wrong from a moral standpoint. And so I'm glad the mayor is doing what he's doing, but it lets you know how easy it is to speak truth that says we want to be diverse because we've got a diverse city and we need to be. And then some people get their feelings hurt.
Candace?
Listen, presidents and CEOs across the country, the handful of African Americans that are Black, they don't have vice presidents that are Black. That just doesn't happen. It only happens the only way around. And it is because of the fact that too much concentrated power makes white people feel very, very uncomfortable. And that's what we're seeing. The other point I want to make is that when we look at Title VII, there are some areas that it does not apply to, like religious institutions and political appointments. So if these are exclusively political appointments, Title VII actually does not apply to them in terms of barring someone because of race and gender and things of that nature. So I'd be very interested to see how this turns out, because these political appointments are something that Title VII is not an umbrella for. And finally, they let out numbers in terms of how many people they do have that are Black, white, Asian, and it pretty much would satisfy any white person across the country in terms of looking at how it's pretty much equally distributed. Does it have to be that way? No, but that is generally how African Americans.
No, Candace, these white These white folks ain't satisfied. They want all the jobs.
What I'm saying.
They don't want Black folks having 5%.
Listen, the numbers that they have, I'm saying I'll be very interested to see what the pushback will be. That's all.
It ain't no pushback. This is nothing but a PR stunt by that idiot. That's all it is. No, I'm saying it's a PR.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying that
they have no basis. But again, in their minds, white people should have all the jobs. And if you Black and got a job, oh, you got it because of DEI. You got it for affirmative action. It never dawns on them that somebody white got hired because they white.
This is true.
Never. It never, ever happens.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
All right, folks. There's an idiot sitting in the Oval Office. It ain't even close. An absolute idiot. So today, y'all, I saw this and I just thought it was just too hilarious. So a reporter decides to ask the grifter in chief, who is really stupid when it comes to tariffs, what the conservative Wall Street Journal said. And let me help y'all out. The Wall Street Journal is a conservative Republican newspaper. They've always been about Republican policies. It is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns the New York Post and Fox News. So here's what the reporter said today that just really set off Donald Trump when he was like, oh my God, this question is just so horrible. How dare you ask? Y'all got the video ready? And it really, to me, is a perfect example of how stupid this man is. Listen to this.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country, and because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me, he said, you got the hottest we have the hottest country in the world right now. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question. Go ahead. To me, that's the nastiest question.
A nasty man talking about what is a nasty question. It really is hilarious to me when you listen to that idiot, and that's really what he is, a complete idiot. Because this question is so nasty. I dare you ask me that question. I like how you asked me that question because calling me out because I look like an idiot. Because the question is just it's the nastiest question I've gotten in the past 5 minutes. Because what he really prefers for people to constantly kiss his ass. And so he stands before the cameras and says, oh my God, our economy was dead. Our economy was so dead. The economy was going all over the place. Really? That's interesting. This is the Joint Economic Committee for Democrats. This is, these are actual facts. This is 2021. The U.S. economy improved during Biden's first year in office, first 12 months, the most in 50 years. Job growth, economic growth, retail sales. Oh, the economy grew at the fastest rate in nearly 40 years. GDP up 5.7%. Look at these numbers. Look at that right there. Let's see here. 5.7% on the far right. That's the most since 1984. That's kind of interesting. And this is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. This is what is crazy. This is also what's amazing. Derek, I'm going to start with you because he's a liar. He's a liar. MAGA, they're pretty stupid. They believe the lies. Anything that fool says that they fall for. And this is exactly what happens. And the fact of the matter is, the economy improved greatly. The United States economy grew faster than any other industrialized nation post-COVID. So it's a lie. Donald Trump is a liar. He's lying when he says, oh my God, the country was dead. We were almost dead. We were dead. It's a lie. He's straight lying. And this is where, if you're a reporter, you should say, well, I'm sorry, you're incorrect because the economy grew at the fastest rate of any other industrialized country. See, they won't do that. So what they do is, and the same thing happens when you see the people go on. I said the other day when Speaker Mike Johnson goes on with Jake Tapper and he asked him about that crypto dinner. Well, I don't know. I was really busy last week, with the House bill. I didn't hear about any of this. Really? You didn't hear about any of this? And then it will allow them to go on and lie. No, you got to shut the lies down.
Roland, again, this is the liar in chief. Right? I mean, someone has a tally thus far, I think documented like 31,000 lies since this dude been in office the first time, 31,000. But here's the bottom line to the essence of your point. Facts and data be damned. They don't care about facts and data. They know 6 months ago the headlines of our economy. Strong, right? Financially solvent. The stock market was a runaway freight train, a bull, if you will. But now the headlines are saying potential recession. The CBO office is saying that this tax cut bill will negatively impact Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. It will reduce the solvency of Social Security. The CBO also says that this is going to increase our national debt, another $4.5 trillion. And so so we can look at the two bookends, what the headlines were 6 months ago and what they are now. It's just amazing that he says some Saudi prince told him that we're hot, as if he shouldn't know what our state of economy, what the health of our economy.
Well, first of all, let's be real clear. The Saudi king, let's be real clear here, okay? The Saudi king, Candace, I don't believe nothing Trump says. So when Trump says, well, the Saudi king told me, I don't believe that fool. I don't believe that fool at all, because he gonna lie about that. Again, liars will lie. All this man does is lie. That's what he does over and over and over again, Candace. And so when he said, again, everything he said that was a lie. So I don't believe the Saudi king. You got the hottest. The Saudi king will say whatever to make that dumbass feel good.
And listen, even if he had video of it rolling, we'd have to double check and make sure it wasn't AI. We have to double check everything. We don't know these days. Trump acts in a way that anything anybody says secretly or behind closed doors on private phone calls, they all are loving Trump. They're all in Trump's favor. I think that one of the things that's so interesting, as you said, with the Wall Street Journal being a conservative operation, which it has always been, right? Rupert Murdoch's of the world. Here was a paper calling him Taco, right? Trump always changes chickens out. So you got this thing going on where The press is supposed to be his friend. He could not have won any election, as with anybody, but especially not Trump. Was not going to win an election without the media being his friends. So number one, he is losing that groundswell of support. And even if he's not, that's what it looks like. Second, you called him Taco. And what do you think about when you think about tacos? Mexicans. I mean, this was just way out of the league. And I think the 8th grader in him, which is what we often see, and how he negotiates, was just did not like the name calling. Besides anything else, besides him flipping on the tariffs, besides him not getting, the media support, Trump liked to be the leader of the bullies in the 8th grade. And in this taco calling, he lost out. They bullied him into answering a question. They bullied him and now have given him this name that's certainly going to stick. He doesn't want to be associated with anybody that should be deported from the country. He doesn't want anything to do with tacos, anything to do with Mexican, anything to do with anything. So they really got him. And I think that's where a lot of his angst and his anger was coming from in this press conference.
And again, he's a liar. We can't get around the reality here, Rebecca. This is a massive liar. I believe nothing that comes out of his mouth. If Donald Trump says, oh my God, it's really raining outside, I'm literally going to go to the window and double check. I don't believe anything that fools. If Donald Trump I believe nothing this man says because he will lie about lies.
If Trump said it was raining outside, I'm going outside after my silk press without an umbrella. It's like, come on. Not only is he playing chicken, he's almost like Biff from Back to the Future, where he's kind of a bully but really has no teeth. And so what we're watching is like the tariff hokey pokey. He's saying, okay, I'm going to put 25% on you, Canada. Oh, but I'm going to roll it back to 10% because now you're saying you're going to do reciprocal tariffs. Oh, China, I'm going to go up to 75%. And China's like, okay, I'll raise you 125%. So for someone who's talked about all the winning that he does, and he's a winner and all he does is win, so far I haven't seen any of it. Instead, what we've seen is that the American economy is taking a hit. We're seeing that there's fluctuations on the stock market that shouldn't really be there. And to your point at the top of this segment is, there are real concerns that we're going to have a recession, but it's not going to be a recession from the classical sense of just the economy going through its different cycles, but it's going to be a Trump-induced recession.
And I'm just sitting here watching these idiot MAGA people, and there's no other phrase. I have to call. I remember I was on CNN and I was on Anderson Cooper, John Avalon, Derek, and they were like, he was like, Roland, it's not really smart to call the American people stupid. No, I'm like, well, you're stupid, you're stupid. Okay? And you know who's stupid? North Carolina people who voted for Trump. You know who's stupid? Missouri people who voted for Trump. You know who's stupid? Arkansas people who voted for Donald Trump. Because you know what he's done? He said, North Carolina, you ain't getting hurricane relief. Missouri, oh, you had some destructive tornadoes. you ain't getting relief. Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was his chief liar in the White House the first time, begging him. He's like, no, y'all ain't getting relief. These dumbasses voted for him, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, when the hurricane tornado hits y'all, go to hell, kick rocks. I'm giving you nothing. And these idiots still like, yeah, he's my guy, that's my guy.
Listen, you got to add Georgia to that mix too, Roland. Add Georgia because he declined to give us our $5.5 billion for FEMA for a hurricane that happened last fall. He also negatively impacting our plan in terms of our infrastructure, our electric vehicles charging station, all the federal grant dollars that former President Biden had already tailored to come to Georgia. He already told Brian Kemp, the governor, hey, I ain't sending you your money. So you got to add Georgia to that mix, Roland. These individuals keep kissing the orange butt and getting zero things in return. And this is a transactional president that refuses to do the things that he should be doing. And the last point I would say is this too, though, Roland. You mentioned about the coins, the meme coins, the $5 million per person or $1 million per person. That's extortion. That's extortion. They don't, but the Republicans don't want to call it that, right? So the Speaker of the House, I was busy that day. I'm not sure what was going on. Really? This guy's, he's an extortionist. They don't want to call him that. But what do criminals do? What would a 34 felon count criminal would do? Criminals conduct crime. Mob bosses, they conduct crime. And that's what he's doing. He is robbing the American people right before our eyes. This is the greatest heist I ever seen, that even Hollywood couldn't even dream up such a movie as this.
And Rebecca, this is actually how Fox News responds. Let's see. I think we have a leak. Like, it's just like, don't even, I mean, they laugh about this whole deal. That's what I'm telling you.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
All right, the idiots at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, just how dumb they are, okay? So in their desperation to attack Harvard, but also their desperation to keep brown people out of the country, they pause new student visa interviews while they consider expanding social media vetting. So basically what this is Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, they want to literally throw people out of the country who utter anything critical of the United States. Do y'all remember when Marco Rubio was testifying before the Senate, and he proudly, no, it was for the House, and it was a member who was speaking, and now check this out. Here's a video where this is the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Okay, in a country where the First Amendment is first, is saying you criticize Israel and you're a student visa, you can't stay here. Listen to this.
Under President Trump, the United States will stand with the Jewish people. We have implemented a vigorous new visa policy that will prevent foreign nationals from coming to the United States to foment hatred against our Jewish community. We are holding international organizations and nations accountable for rhetoric against Israel that resurfaces in the manifesto of monsters like Iran and Sarah's killer. But we do see an eventual light at the end of this long tunnel of suffering. One can imagine a Middle East in which the Abraham Accords eventually reign. So thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Folks, first and foremost, let me be real clear. He's full of shit because it's not about fomenting hatred. What he's actually doing is targeting individuals, even if you write an op-ed that's critical. Listen to this.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa, okay? You are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick.
So, again, one of the people they went after, she wrote an op-ed. That's how it was. Now, officially, the focus is on Chinese nationals, particularly those in tech fields or with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. But that's not what this is all about. We know what it's all about, the game that they're playing. So joining us right now, Nana Giambi, Executive Director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Glad to have you on the show. Again, Nana, this is how, what these people, they literally are calling through everything. And if you uttered anything negative about Trump, about MAGA, about the Republicans, this is not about Israel. This is not about Hamas. Their whole deal is, I mean, we have people posting how they are going through cell phones at customs and looking through text messages and all of this to look for any critical comments about Republicans, Trump, or MAGA.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so very much for having me on. And thank you for connecting all of these dots. This has nothing to do with Israel. When you look at who they target, like the big pieces that we see are like students at Harvard, students at these Ivy Leagues. But when he talked initially about 300 visas that had been revoked, those people were not all people who were talking about Israel. You had South Sudanese students who they revoked their visas across this country because they got into dispute with South Sudan, because South Sudan was like, if you're going to deport people, please at least let them be South Sudanese. You're just taking every Negro you can find and deporting them in South Sudan, whether it's their country or not. And we're not going for that. And they just took the visas away from South Sudanese folks. We have students that are here in the San Diego area near where I am in Los Angeles. We got called by 2 students. It ended up being 112 students from Haiti. They had nothing to do with protests. They had nothing to do with Israel or Palestine. This is just targeting vulnerable people because they know that they have their visas in their hands, and expanding their surveillance, their spy machine, looking specifically at social media. And we know that there's policies and executive orders relating to that, to make sure that they can squash dissent. And that's all this is. And if this is allowed to stand, particularly as it pertains to students, it's going to make the surveillance that I know you remember of Black students on campus pushing back and fighting in support of Black lives look like a walk in the park, look like pleasantries, because they're going to be coming after everyone. They practice on one group, but it's meant for us all, and particularly Black students.
And so again, we have to be extremely vigilant. And so you hear Rubio saying, supporting Hamas and fomenting dissent against Jewish Americans and against Israel. But as you said, that's not what's happening with the Sudanese.
That's not what's happening with the Sudanese. That's what's happening with all of these people whose visa interviews have been paused. Imagine what it takes, and you know this, Roland, how hard it is as an African student, as a Caribbean student, to even get to the point that you are even given an interview. It's not like you apply and then the next school year, that's what happens. No, people are waiting years. When you get here, you have to save up the funds because you're not going to get grants. You can't get scholarships. You can't get financial aid. You have to pay for this on your own. And most folks who are applying are working class. It's not, coming to America where they're the Prince of Zamuda or whatever. They're just regular working class folks coming here trying to get this education. And now they're saying they're pausing all interviews across the world, the United States, so that they can check out people's social media posts before they decide whether they're going to grant you an interview or not. Folks should not be bamboozled. Not only is this a violation of those students' rights, but this is the practice that they're going to start using on folks here. It'll begin with students and whether or not they're going to give them financial aid, whether or not they're, what kind of federal support are you going to get? Are you going to get a Pell Grant? Suddenly your social media handles are going to be a part of the application for that process. And then we know that it's going to start extending from there until it just becomes a mandate that in order to get a job, in order to go to school, in order to get benefits, that you've got to turn over and let Big Brother know whether the king is being besmirched in any of the posts or any of the chats, any of the emails that you may be sending, which is your First Amendment right to do, even as an international student, as a visitor in any capacity, regardless of citizenship in this country.
Questions from the panel. Nola, you're first.
Nana, thank you so much for saying everything that you said and the work that you do. So I think about this from the perspective of earlier in the show, Roland had mentioned different types of bills that were kind of included within the civil rights package. And one of those things, I've done a lot of research on the Immigration Nationality Act, especially the 1965 part, where the quotas were lifted and more people were able to come to the country, quote unquote, if you were qualified, basically if you had the money to come. And so over time, first it started with an explosion of Asian, different folks from Asian regions, and then African countries, and then Latin American countries. And so I think a lot of what we are seeing is also a push back to that, right? To opening up the so-called American dream to Black and brown folks, because that wasn't the initial intention of the first draft, the first and second draft of the Immigration Nationality Act, right? So as we are seeing all of these pushbacks against everything that came out of the civil rights package, this is also included, but it's not talked about as much. And then also, we saw this pop up in the first Trump administration, especially with the second travel ban. So my question is, how are people feeling in the diaspora? Do people even still want to come here when Trump 1 and Trump 2 so blatantly is trying to roll back all of the progress that was made through that whole package of the civil rights during the civil rights times and opening it up to everyone?
So, people still want to come to the United States. They're very concerned about coming to the United States, right? And so, you have a couple of things that are happening that are causing, in particular, Black international students to come here. One of the things is that because of the way that the United States has engaged in our countries, right, our home countries, and the rest of the West, we don't have those universities. We don't have those medical schools. So a third of the Black people that are in this country are in the field of the medical field. And so many, for example, Haitians. But Haiti, because of U.S. foreign policy with respect to Haiti, because of France's actions with respect to Haiti, Canada, et cetera, it doesn't have the medical schools if you want to go to medical school for you to do that in Haiti. So yes, people are looking particularly at those countries that have done so much damage to our home countries to say, look, we're going to go, right, where our profits are going that you're taking from us. We're going to go where our people have gone that you stole from us. We're going to go and reconnect and, build those relationships there. And so people want to do it, but they're very clear about the fact that you're Black people, right? We're Black. We're not some other kind of thing just because of our nationality. And it's always been different for us. It's never been the same to be even a Black Brit coming into this country as it is a white Brit coming into this country. It's always been different. So we have kind of that muscle already, but certainly I think it's important for folks to understand exactly what you said in terms of the connection with civil rights and immigrant rights, because immigrant rights is in fact a racial justice issue that squarely deals with Blackness and migration. And to the degree that we don't see those connections, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of African Americans in a Black site in El Salvador, confused about what has happened to them, right? As well as having a whole bunch of Black immigrants in this country confused about what happened to the land of the free and the home of the brave. We've got to make those connections, connect those dots. So I'm so pleased to be able to be here today to really have that conversation.
Reese.
And your lipstick is fine. Your lipstick is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Stop trying to add stuff. Go on here, Reese. Ask your question.
It's always good to be with you on this program because, to my point earlier, our conversations with you on this program have been warning about the connection, to your point, between racial justice issues and immigration justice issues. I want to cover a little bit more about the South Sudanese part because I still don't know if it's really clicking with people. And I think that this administration is very strategic and unfortunately smart in how they've tried to use immigrants as a pretext to be able to really attack freedom of speech and to increase surveillance on people. There's reporting today about how they've been basically farming all of this data from migrant children that they've been DNA that they've been collecting. To the last point you made about how sooner rather than later, we'll probably see Black people who are American-born U.S. citizen Black people in Black sites. Can you just talk a little bit more about what you've seen in terms of kind of the tea leaves you've seen and the policy that you've seen with this administration talking about wanting to deport homegrown people, about their sloppiness and who they've targeted in terms of people who don't have criminal records, but who've been in the crosshairs of different law enforcement actions that have landed them in trouble with immigration? Because I feel like people are a little bit complacent because they hear immigrant and they think, well, I'm a U.S. citizen. But we've seen a sloppiness with this administration where if you don't have due process, you can be rounded up as these ICE agents are walking around in military gear in Tallahassee now and Martha's Vineyard, rounded up and find yourself in South Sudan. So if you can linger a little bit more on that point about how these things are a lot closer to happening, if they aren't already happening, than people might suspect.
So, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how we just celebrated the 100 years of Malcolm X, Brother Malcolm. And one of the things that he teaches us, he said, you couldn't possibly be an American, speaking to African Americans, because if you were an American, they wouldn't have to keep passing this stuff. You would already have all these rights in the Constitution, right? And he wasn't saying you're not American in the sense that you haven't done what needs to be done to be American. He was saying this country will always see you as foreign. And it's a painful reality, but it is a reality, right? As, the original alien is the kidnapped African brought to this country in chains, right? And, all of the laws that start with immigration that are limiting immigration in this country all begin with Black people. We're told to begin with Southeast Asians. That is not correct. They begin with free Haitians trying to get into this country and being told at that time, no, you can't come in. And so this thing about Blackness and otherness is one that we live with every single day, again, regardless of our citizenship. And the fact that people are African American, when you have folks that are stopping people and are saying, we don't care about how you sound, right? Because Nsé Ufot, who we know, who was at one point the ED of New Georgia Project, came to this country when she was 12. And you can't tell that by hearing her talk. And there's so many other folks, right, that are in similar situations. And so they're saying they don't know from how you talk, so they're going to grab you and ask questions later. They are now saying that they mistakenly, and we know that's a lie, but let's put that to the side, mistakenly took Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador, that he should not be there. And yet he is still there. And so the fact that you should not be there is not enough for you to be brought back to this country once they decide that they're sending you away. And they are making plans. They're in talks with Djibouti. They were in talks with Libya. They were in talks with Rwanda. Roland, we got to talk to some of these African leaders because they're losing their minds too. They're in talks with the Central and South American countries, right? To see where can we pay you to hold folks? And we will be sitting right next to each other, side by side. Foreign-born Black people like me who are the children of foreign Black people, and Black people who are African American. Once these folks do what they do, if we don't stop them.
Greg.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Sister Nana, for your work. And I'm glad you brought that last point up. We know that the Black Star scared the hell out of Eisenhower and Kennedy and Nixon, that Kwame Nkrumah coming here and raising at the United Nations the question of Pan-Africanism and African solidarity is one of the reasons that Africans in the United States were able to make the advances that we were able to make. And that really leads me to the question I have for you. Even as we see Donald Trump and his white racist friends in their death bleed, we know that white supremacy is dying, and we know that this is going to be a painful death. The painful death. What do you see on the horizon in terms of a post-American global order? What are some of the alternatives to coming to this criminal enterprise for students? We saw what happened today at Harvard, as I mentioned earlier, the ovation for the president of Harvard standing in solidarity. I think there are going to be some unintended consequences in terms of global solidarity movements. Hopefully that will reawaken Pan-Africanism among Africans here in the United States and internationally. We know Paul Kagame is on the take. He's been on the take for quite some time in Rwanda, so we will look to nothing for him, even as his rhetoric of Pan-Africanism should poison his mouth for him trying to even gesture in that direction, given what he's done and what he will do. What do you think of the possibilities of a post-American global order? And how should we be thinking about solidarity movements globally as African people to help us in this moment?
So thank you for that. I mean, one of the things that we talk about is we know that the system as we know it is falling. And that certainly in that process, I'm not cheering it on. I'm never going to cheer on the building falling on people because there's people that are in it, right?
Absolutely.
But it's happening. Whether we're cheering, not cheering, obviously the system as we have it now is not one that I would set up. I think that there's a lot that needs to be done and there's a dismantling that needs to happen. I wish we could do it in a more orderly manner, but it's just the nature of what we're dealing with. It's going to happen in a manner that's not orderly. What are we building for the other side, right? I mean, earlier you all were talking about Palestine, and you think about Palestine, the Congo, Cameroon, Sudan, all of these countries in which wars are happening, and people are building for the other side. People know that some people are going to survive, and what's on the other side of this. And I think even as we talk about this international student issue, particularly as it pertains to Black students, that is part of the building for the other side. Kwame Nkrumah went to Lincoln University.
That's right.
And we know if we look at HBCUs, if we look at community colleges, we look at our fraternities and sororities, that it is not just African Americans in this space, right?
That's right.
That in fact, because international students, Black international students are paying fees in here, that's part of how we survive to the other side. If he snatches this money from community colleges as they snatch money from HBCUs, the capacity to have Black international students is what's going to keep these colleges moving and keep our people still able to hold on till we get to the other side, right? And so that's important. And when we have people coming from the United States, African Americans from various HBCUs that have programs, sending folks to Ghana, letting people learn in Cape Town and Johannesburg, having people go to Kenya, sending people to the University of West Indies. That's how we build that global solidarity, Black solidarity that we're going to need, because on the other side, it is absolutely not going to be about alphabet soup. And
That's right.
it's absolutely
That's
not going to be about, I'm from Ghana, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from here, I'm from there. We're not going to erase where we come from, obviously, in our cultures, but we're going to have an understanding that it is with us working together and building together the world that only we, as the progenitors of the entire world population, understand needs to be, right? And so this thing with the international students is not just a nothing. It's a lot, because it's a way in the formidable years of people's lives, of Black people's lives, for us to be connected to each other, for us to learn, for us to love on each other, for us to be with each other, that they're trying to destroy here, because they know that 20% of Black people in this country are either foreign-born or children of foreign-born people. And they know that a lot of those people, like my parents, my father came in 1965 to get his PhD in civil engineering at Berkeley. And they know that that's going to produce a Nana and all my siblings who are going to join this liberation fight for Black people. And they know that. And so we have to make this an important part of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan, Nana, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Keep up the fight.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.